Good morning, and welcome to another Graybeard Nomad adventure. It's been a while, but today we start a new trip to the West Coast. Ready? Let's go. After a year of waiting because of COVID, I'm finally getting a chance to go on my second long journey across the country. This trip is to the state of Washington. Overall, this will be a 37-day trip. 5 days to cross the country each way, and 27 days exploring a number of areas across the state. I will visit most of Washington and all 3 of its national parks. I spend a few days photographing the lush wheat fields and farm country of the Palouse, camp along the Snake River, and visit the Palouse Falls. Next, based out of Beacon Rock State Park, I explore the Columbia River Gorge area for several days. Then on to the Olympic Peninsula, a place high on my bucket list to see the majestic sea stacks on the coast, lush rainforest, lovely waterfalls, and the high mountains of the Olympic National Park. I then head off to take in the backcountry beauty of the Cascade Mountains, starting in the north and then crisscrossing the state, including visits to both Mount Rainier and Mount St. Helens. Although I'll be hiking, kayaking, and bike riding, for me, this is a photography trip first and foremost. I have been looking forward to this trip for a long time. I began planning it back in the fall of 2019, expecting to go on it in the spring of 2020. But of course, the pandemic put that on hold until now. If you have ever driven across the country, you know it's a grind. But because every story needs a beginning, this video covers this part of the journey. 5 days to travel across the country to Washington. With few exceptions, I stop just to get gas, eat, and camp at night. On day 1, I am headed to western Pennsylvania. From there, my nightly stops are southern Wisconsin, central North Dakota, western Montana, and finally, the Palouse in southeastern Washington. Let me take you through this as quickly as possible. I couldn't avoid going through Chicago. Although I hit traffic in other places, mostly due to road construction, this was the worst. Although it will take the bribe of a beer or two to tell the full story of my predicament while crawling along the highway, let's just say it was a first for me. But preparation and need are strong bedfellows, and they served me well today. I got through without incident. This morning, I take the long route to North Dakota. This is mid-May, only a few weeks after the completion of the Derek Chauvin trial. Although there is no news of unrest, I decide it is simply better to skip going through Minneapolis. Instead, I will stay south and head to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, before heading north to Fargo and west to my destination in New Salem, North Dakota. I head out of camp early this morning. The temperatures are cool and brisk. After getting coffee and gas, I start my journey to Montana. The roads are empty and the grasslands of North Dakota drift by for miles and miles. About 90 miles into my ride, I start to notice the changing landscape and a sign for the Theodore Roosevelt National Park. A few miles later, I see another sign announcing a scenic overlook. As I approach the cutoff, I notice the bulky figures of bison grazing up at the overlook. Quickly pulling off the highway, I approach the Painted Canyon Visitors Center parking lot, where a small herd of bison of about 20 are quietly grazing around the area. These are my first wild bison, so I park and take the opportunity to take some photographs and video. Entering Montana was a key point of demarcation for me on this trip. In my mind, it represented the start of the West. I am sure North Dakotans would argue. The grasslands would continue to dominate the landscape all the way through Bozeman. I knew the mountains were ahead, and it wouldn't be long before I got my first views. Before me, hills started to form, and then snow-capped mountains could be seen in the distance. As I moved forward, terrain began to shape and change. I was about to head into mountain country. I would stop before reaching Butte today, and that meant the real mountains would have to wait another day. But I would get to experience another part of Montana. I would be camping at the Missouri Headwaters State Park, where three rivers, the Jefferson, Madison, and Gallatin, merged to form the 2,300-mile Missouri River. Arriving to the park early in the day, I got a chance to pull out the bike and take a quick ride around the park. This was the first time on this trip that camping was more than arrival, eating, and sleeping. It is early afternoon on day 5 when I finally arrive just north of Colfax. It is said by many that overlanding is more about the journey than the destination. I agree, except when going cross-country. In that case, my goal is to get to my destination state quickly, and then I can begin to enjoy the journey. It is now time to enjoy the journey.